Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Ohio Music Summit 2021. My name is Alex Malcolm. I'm a senior coordinator of music sync placement at Warner Music Group. Today, we'll be having a conversation with Jen Malone, music supervisor, just recently nominated for an Emmy, winner of the Guild Music Award. Jen, it's great to have you here. We're really excited to have you. As a former student, this stuff's very important, either just learning about the music industry in general, learning about music supervision, and just, putting faces to names and realizing that dreams can become realities.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. To start off, we all just love to hear career stories and journey, how you got to where you were today, what your first jobs were like, where you went to school, what you studied. Just run us through a little bit of yourself.
So I went to Northeastern University. I was a music industry major, and my first job was doing PR for a company called Formula. And we did 9 Inch Nails and Crystal Method and Portishead and Prodigy. And it was an internship there, and I learned everything that you needed to know about PR. So after that, I started my own PR company, and I did PR for rock bands for many years. I ended up getting very burnt out because it's a grind. I mean, publicity is not for the faint of heart. And it's a lot. It's a grind. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. I knew I wanted to do something other than PR and just kind of learn like a new trade, if you will. But I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to go see the movie Iron Man, and the music supervisor credit rolled by. And I was like, music supervisor. Okay, that's what I want to do. I want to be a music supervisor. So I ended up moving to Los Angeles, not knowing anything about anything, had no idea of any of the terminology or even what goes into making a television or film. And just started taking meetings with anyone that would speak to me, anybody that would meet with me. And I just did a lot of research. I knew who the supervisors were, who their agents were, what projects they've worked on. I read interviews with them. And like I said, just started meeting people. I ended up going to this event where a lot of music supervisors and artists would go to. And very serendipitously, I met Dave Jordan, who's a music supervisor for all the Marvel films. And I was just like, well, wait, Richard Kraft won't get back to me about getting my resume to you. He said, do you know who my agent is? I said, of course I do. I want to work for you. And he said, okay, that's creepy, but awesome. What's your name? And we hit it off. And, I just explained to him that this is the entertainment industry. You start at the bottom. Nobody's going to pay me to do something I don't know how to do. And internships is how you learn. So he was like, okay, start on Monday. So I got an internship right away. And again, this was my second career. I was not in college. So it was, it was definitely starting off at the bottom. I was there for 3 months. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I was with Dave. And then Fridays, I was with Julia Michaels, who's also part of Format. And on, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I just was continuing trying to take meetings and reading as much as I could online, watching, other panels. And that internship was great. I just ended up like reading everything that came through the office, asking questions. I listened to everything that was said, asked questions, and everybody was great over there. So after the 3 months in the summer, the internship was over and kind of didn't really know what to do next. And I was on an email news group of women in the music industry. And somebody posted that MTV was looking for interns in their supervision department. And I was kind of like, Okay, going to Dave Jordan's like cool, funky office is one thing. Going to, Viacom and MTV is a little bit different. I remember when I was in school and all of my classmates would go to the internship, but, it was kind of like, suck it up, you'll learn, you'll meet people. So I went in for the interview, and they were just like, trust us, do whatever you need to do to get into the orientation program. So when you work for giant corporations, as an intern, you have to get school credit. Sure. So I just went to LA Community College. I filled out an ad slip. I never went. I never paid. I got into that internship program to the orientation. I interned for 3 days, and then I got a job as a music coordinator on VH1 shows. So that's it's a very unorthodox way to get into it. But again, it's my second career. So, it was just it was just very different. So I worked in reality television for about 5 years, and, it's not sexy. It's not the cool shows, but I learned so much because I think reality TV can be 10 times more difficult of a show to music supervise than, a medical drama show, for example. And then what happened was I'm from Boston, and I reconnected with a friend in Boston who was working on a show called Baskets. And she was like, hey, can you just clear this one song? I said, sure, of course. And then a couple weeks later, it's like, hey, do you know if this song is public domain? Okay, can you just be our music supervisor? So that's how I got Baskets, and that was my first scripted show. And then Caitlin is her name. She ended up calling me and said, okay, I'm working on this new show. It's for FX. It's going to be a lot of hip hop, a lot of mixtapes. Like it's not going to be easy. And it's with Donald Glover. And I was like, yep, I'm in. They could have paid me $5, and don't tell them that. But and that's how I got Atlanta. And then, after season 1, having it be such a big show for not only for, writing, directing, and acting, but for music as well. And so that kind of really, that took off. And, I'm just very lucky that I've been working pretty steadily ever since on a lot of different projects. Ironically enough, Caitlin was working on Euphoria, and she was like, hey, I have this show. It's, pretty intense, but do you want to come in for a meeting? Said, absolutely. And that's how I got Euphoria. And being in the Euphoria family has allowed me to kind of do a lot of other projects within the family. So Malcolm and Marie and Pieces of a Woman and a couple other films that are coming up. So, it's very much a family, but, I kind of work on a lot of other shows and movies and stuff. So it's been a ride. It's been a ride for sure.
For people who don't know how the basic music supervision exists, like as a company format, for me, Warner Music Group's a big corporation. We report to an office, go through that. We have a team of people for years. How is music supervision sort of set up? Is it more of a freelance field where you're working amongst a client base? And how do you go about, maybe setting up your own LLC, your own company on your own behalf?
Well, I'm independent. I mean, it started with just me. I was doing everything, creative, clearance, every day kind of, running the department of the music for the show. But as far as forming my own business, I mean, I've always been independent. I ran my own PR company. So being in-house was just definitely not something for me. But, as I started growing, and especially after Euphoria, where, my phone is I'm very lucky that it's ringing a lot. I brought in 2 other women that are amazing, that are kind of, coordinating and, co-supervising and stuff. So we all just, we all work together on a lot of different shows. But doing an LLC, again, it's just, doing research on how to do it. I mean, half of this job in general is research. Whether you're researching, you need a song from 1963, like Umbrella Academy last season was all like 1963 and before. So really learning, just doing that research for what songs they are. Or I did a country music pilot, which I learned a lot about country music. And so it's just, so a lot of it is just research, but, I read Deadline every day and Hollywood Reporter and all the trades to see what shows are getting greenlit. And I'm lucky that after Euphoria season 2, after the first Emmy nomination, I met with an agent over at WME, Bradley, and I've been working with him ever since. So he definitely helps getting the meetings, but I'm just always hustling to be like, I want to do this one. Get me a meeting with this company. Can I talk to this producer? So I definitely make him work, but he's amazing. But so much of it is just building it myself.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Cool. As you said, you've gotten a lot more busy, and obviously I'm sure you're in more demand than you have been before. So run us through a typical day, week, year on your schedule. And also with a lot more projects rolling in or more, bandwidth that's out there right now, do you have to turn things down? Are there things that you were not able to land that you wish you really would have? Or it's like sort of on your wish list of things you would like to work on?
Well, to answer your first question, it really, shows, I think, go for I would say 9 months. So I have shows in all different, and the reason why I always keep looking up is because I have my board right up here, which has all of my projects and all of my dates, because otherwise I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what I'm working on. So every show is kind of in a different spot because now there's no pilot season, because normally pilot season would be in January, and then things would get greenlit for February, and then you'd run all the way to June, May or June. But that's with network television. But now with the streaming, I mean, I have shows starting kind of every month, and they just get staggered. Some of the shows are a little bit more low maintenance, which is nice. But then you have shows like Euphoria, which is a giant, it's a beast. It's a huge, it's a lot of work. So it's just kind of spacing stuff out. And the women that I work with, my girls, we're all together, we're all in it. We kind of make a lot of decisions together as far as, is this something that's, is this a show that we want to work on? Are these people, do we want to live with these people every day for the next 9 months? Is it a project that we believe in? Is it a project that we can, have creative freedom? And so, something like Umbrella Academy, I did season 2. I was obsessed with season 1, and I was always like, I want to do season 2. And, just the stars align, and I ended up getting it. And as far as there are some shows that I do have to turn down because, timing wise, it just doesn't work out. And that's okay. As far as stuff that I want, I mean, there's a million directors and showrunners and, people that I want to work with, but I know it will all come, and I just try to stay very grounded about it. And if I don't get a show, then that means I dodged a bullet in my mind. Sure. But, we definitely go out for the stuff that we want. And a lot of it is, through my relationships, but bringing in, Nicole or the other people that work with me, this is going to be a great show for you. So you're going to run point on that. But of course, I'm always going to have a presence with my showrunners because, they're kind of looking towards us. And then, we have a couple animation shows, and those just take forever. I mean, literally almost 2 years. So that kind of allows us, 6 months where they're actually out animating it to be able to, pick up another show or another independent film. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how it, we just roll with it. That's kind of the motto for 2021 too. It's like, we're just roll with it.
Piggybacking on what you mentioned about relationships, how important do relationships internally with productions and the shows you're working on, and also externally with people like, myself, and, we're working on the clearance side, and we have, you got to maintain some nice rapport there to make sure you're, I guess just walk us through how important that is to you guys, and how important it is to the production as well.
Well, like you said, relationships are everything. And, the goal is kind of to, work on a show and then to be somebody's guy, right? I want to be their guy as far as like, the projects every project that they're going to do, I get on board. Kind of like how it is with Euphoria and whether it's one of my producers or Sam and Ash and Kevin are executive producers themselves, like Malcolm and Marie. It's relationships are everything. So, and you never know where you're going to get your job from. It could come from an editor's recommendation. It could come from a post producer. It could come from a line producer, a director that you work with. I mean, you never know what everybody's next project is going to be. So that's really important. And you also just want to, in general, on a show, on every level, you just want to be pleasant with the people that you're working with. And sometimes, you kind of want to be as drama-free as possible, because there's going to be enough drama on the set and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And then as far as my relationships with people on the other side, the licensors, I mean, that is crucial. And I am so, so lucky that the people that I work with on the other side, I truly believe that you guys work just as hard as I do to get it done and to help put together the pieces, whether it's find somebody, who has that 2%, or whether it's, okay, you have that re-record, or whether it's, can you help me out? I only have this amount of money. So relationships are everything. And I do believe it's also a give and take. On some projects, I just don't have a lot of money, but on other projects I do. And so it's very much like I promise I will get you back type of relationship. So I think that just overall relationships are everything on every level. Whether it's with other music supervisors, other people in your community, the coordinators that are going to end up running departments someday, you never know where you're going to get your next gig.
Sure. Yeah, perfect. I guess next, now we're getting into the nitty gritty, a little boring protocol stuff, but how does the process of licensing syncs work? From your side, being on more of the creative, sucking in music suggestions and whatnot, and then, walking it through how does a song get the approvals to go ahead to be placed in a show, just walk us through everything.
Well, yeah, I'll start at the very beginning, and that starts, we come on sometimes during the script stage, mostly when everybody gets into pre-production. We get the scripts and we do what's called a music breakdown. So it's just, you read the scripts and you see, okay, these scenes that might need music, do they need music on set? Is somebody humming something or even whistling, or, are they singing in the shower, or is there a car radio, or is there a dance? Anything that may or may not have music, you kind of flag and you have the conversation with your producer and your director, like, okay, do you need music here, or is this a put it in post? Or, we've got a karaoke scene. So, all right, what song do we want? So we start very, very early. And so once we start shooting, we're, as a music supervisor, I'm with the production. I get, there are these documents called one-liners. And basically that's just the shooting schedule. So it's like, okay, Wednesday we're shooting these scenes, Thursday we're shooting those scenes. So it's really just kind of keeping your eye, especially with the show that either has on cameras or that have dance. I work on a show called Step Up, which is a whole dance show. So it's just constantly, all right, and what I try to do is always give them music that's already cleared to do the dance, as opposed to have them, dance to a Travis Scott song that A, is not clearable, B, we can't afford it. And then I have to get into BPMs and stuff. So I try to eliminate that. And I work very closely with my choreographer on that. If there's original songs where we have to do what's called a pre-record, because whenever you see somebody singing or performing or a band playing on camera, it's fake. They're lip syncing, and we made the track, maybe even a couple days before. Sure. And then as you start shooting, the editors are getting cuts, or they're getting their dailies, and they start assembling the episode. And as they're assembling the episode, ideally they're not putting in stuff, because they're always going to put in stuff that's, music that's just unattainable or too expensive. So you, as a music supervisor, you're providing music that's clearable, and obviously that works creative. And that's just a constant conversation with the producers and the director. So as you're shooting and you're putting together the episode, once the episodes start coming together, then you have to start clearing the music. And I do think that clearance is kind of more important than creative, because it's very simple. If you can't clear it and if you can't afford it, you can't use it. So again, you could have the most amazing idea and this is just perfect, but if it's sicko mode, which has something like 40 writers or something, it's not clearable, so you can't use it. So, you have to be very responsible with your budget and with the songs that you're pitching. The last thing you want to do is be like, hey, sicko mode would be dope in this spot, and then all of a sudden you have to tell your director, oh, sorry, it's not clearable. That's the worst.
Sure.
So continuing, we're putting together the episodes, then we're start clearing the music, we're working with budgets, we're making sure, everything is kind of staying somewhat in line. And then as we get into, final mixes, that's when, things, everything is starting to get locked in. You obviously need to have everything cleared, and, you just get everything ready for the mix, which is, that's the pencils down moment where everything needs to be cleared and ready to go. And the mix, sometimes music changes in the mix. I try to prevent that because that's very stressful when you're delivering an episode the next day. Mm-hmm. And then there's obviously the cue sheets and confirmation letters, and, kind of all of that back end business, which that's the unsexy part of music supervision. That part sucks, but it is the most, I don't know. I think it's one of the most important aspects for the reasons I said before. And, it's just very important for people that want to get into this business is to try to have some sort of basis basic understanding of what the process is. And how you get that is obviously events like this, or, something with the Guild of Music Supervisors. It's not easy to break into this, but I do believe kind of from experience that if you hustle and you understand that this job is not making cool playlists, when I'm interviewing people, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't care. That's the last thing I'll ask them. But that part, that's cool if you can make a cool playlist, sure. But, putting music to picture is just very different.
Sure. Yeah, piggybacking off the whole playlist concept, there are a lot of people who see the music supervisor is, this like, it's like the top, luxury position of you just, pick and place things through. So, it's nice to hear about the clearance background and how some things might not fit. But on your behalf and your whole team, how do you guys, one, either go about finding new music that is coming in to kind of sift through? I know there's just a ton of stuff out there right now. Do you guys have, a library of stuff that you're pulling from, or do you rely more heavily on labels and publishers pitching stuff to you? Do you fall back on yourself to make the final call? What's your preferences?
So to answer your very last question first, so the final call is always the director and the showrunner in television. My job is just to give options and ideas. It's very, very rarely when it's like, this is the song, unless it's something I feel really passionate about. I'm like, this is the song. But as far as where I find music, I mean, it's really everywhere. And, anything from, Spotify playlists to SoundCloud to Audio Mac to TikTok to, just regular blogs and playlists. But I do definitely rely on the record labels and publishers specifically to kind of, when I need something that's super niche, I need something from 1994 that is going to play at a pep rally or something, but it needs to be, $15,000 or whatever it is. That's really when I rely a lot on the other side to help find those options, knowing the parameters. Because sometimes going on Spotify and making playlists, again, that's cool and that's fun, but, sometimes it's just, they're just out of your budget. But also, working with the labels and publishers that do playlists and stuff, I'm always listening to those, or at least like, okay, these are the artists. Okay. And I keep that there, take that email and put it in my mailing folder. So yeah, I mean, it's really everywhere. I mean, managers, friends, Twitter, I mean, just anywhere that, that where I kind of find what I'm looking for. I get an artist or I get a playlist, and then I just kind of go down the rabbit hole. That's kind of, that's sometimes the best way at the end of the day when it's quiet and I'm just like, okay, where do I even start? And then some nights it's just like, I'm not there. I'm not in the zone. It's not happening. So I need to just, walk away and then come back. And then all of a sudden I'm brilliant with what I'm picking.
With things like TikTok and also Spotify playlists, sort of creating almost this new fad of sorts where they can bring a song back for a hot period of time or just a popular song in that specific time period. Is that difficult in the realm of TV and film to, I guess you wouldn't necessarily want to put a song that's popular now when the song is coming out months down the line. Do you ever have a trouble with that? Or like dictating what's going to be still popular down the line, like when a film is released or a TV show is released?
That's a great question. If we had our little crystal ball. I mean, sometimes my crystal ball is a little bit hazy, but sometimes it can be right on, like with the Megan Thee Stallion placement and some of the other, Atlanta placements. But that's tough. I think a lot of it, that's conversations with the label and the publishers, especially when you have a high profile show like Euphoria or Atlanta that everybody wants to be in. It can be tough when I'm talking to people and I'm like, I need what's going to pop in 6 months. Sure. So that ends up kind of bringing A&R involved and speaking with them and what are their plans for the release and what are they structured with. I have had artists and labels like switch around their marketing plans because of the placement in Euphoria, for example. And then I've had kind of like surprise, like the Billie Eilish and Rosalia, I knew that was floating around from for a couple months, but then it's just all the stars aligned. And I remember, splits were all just on paper, like Warner Chappell, they had a piece of it, but they were not allowed to put it into the system because we didn't want anybody to know that this song even existed. So if this kind of came up, somebody would be like, oh, wait, I want to pitch this song. And it's like, no, we kind of had, an embargo, so to speak, for our show. So it's a gamble, and, but you just kind of have to, I don't know, it's just a gamble, and hopefully the stuff that you're picking is not going to be tired by the time the show comes out.
Sure. Okay, so now we'll take a little bit more specific example in some of the shows you work on, with Euphoria and Atlanta being very music driven, and music plays a big part in that storyline itself. Is it more difficult working on a show where the music is plugged almost directly into the script and how it's filmed, of everything there, or do you find that, more entertaining on your behalf?
Like whether it's scripted in or whether it's...
Yeah, whether it's sort of like I guess Euphoria feels more of like a active listening experience versus a passive kind of experience of the story. If that makes sense?
I think so. I mean, Sam and other directors and writers will sometimes, script in a song. And like, for example, Arcade Fire song in Euphoria finale, that was actually scripted in as another song. Well, All For Us was a completely other song. But once Sam heard Labyrinth's, All For Us, it was just like, it just blew his mind. And that just became like a thread, kind of like a theme throughout all of the episodes. I think we must have used it in, some form or another, maybe a stem. A stem is, you have a song, you have the vocals, guitars, keys, drums, whatever. And then, a stem could just be like his voice that sometimes you heard. So sometimes stuff is scripted in as like placeholders, but sometimes things are scripted in that is what Sam, like we had Fly Me to the Moon in Euphoria. And that was like, she was singing along in the car. So that was, another thing. When I got the script, the first thing we did was clear that song and then made sure that, obviously Zendaya and everybody knew all the words to that, but make sure that they got lyric sheets for on set, make sure they had the song for playback. But, I think sometimes the director has in mind what he wants for certain scenes. And again, like Malcolm and Marie, there was the James Brown and there was the Dionne Warwick and William Bell. Those were songs that when I first got the script, that's what Sam wanted. That's what was helping tell his story, the story he wanted to tell. So, but then everything else in between was all like, finding ideas and what would Malcolm be listening to kind of thing, and just making, bins of ideas, like a playlist for a Malcolm playlist for the editor to then place in. But with Malcolm and Marie, also because I kind of couldn't be in the room and we were doing Euphoria, like it was just kind of craziness. The editor, Julio, is amazing with music. He knows so much about it and he has such great taste. So he was also putting in a lot of the music as well. Because, editors, they eat, sleep, and breathe their episode or that project. They know it inside and out. No matter how much I try and get in there, they know it. Mm-hmm. So I think, in a lot of ways it is a collaboration. But Sam and all my directors, they're very open to different ideas, whether it's, showrunner for Umbrella Academy and me pitching DJ Shadow during a scene that happens in 1963 or Billy Idol, they're just open. And that's really awesome that when I can just, take it and just try different things up to picture. So, so it just depends on the director and what story he wants to tell and how he wants music to help shape that story.
Sure. Yeah. Off that, with shows like Euphoria, where you have characters that almost have like their own playlist that kind of creates their aesthetic and vibe to the show, do you and production has kind of created for you to fill that music to that character, or do you help change that in a way to make it its own, part of the art?
Well, it's interesting because with a lot of shows, like with Euphoria, that can be a little bit more difficult because these characters change and evolve so much. Mm-hmm. And there's different scenarios. Like for Malcolm's playlist, for Malcolm and Marie, for example, I kind of ran the gamut of, maybe some more depressing, mellow, darker to super fun to, contemporary, like we had Lil Sims and Namandi in there, but then also, Archie Shepp and John Coltrane. So, sometimes making a playlist is a good idea when you start, but then as you kind of continue the story and there's other factors that come into play, sometimes that, that playlist just goes away. So, and I never want to be like limited into what music I can have this character listening to, if that makes sense. So I know a lot of people will just do like straight character playlists. I sometimes, I don't necessarily, because also it's just, what are we feeling in the moment? What are we trying to say? And then whether it's something like the Donny Hathaway in the finale or Kylo Kish in the other 106, I think, when, she's high on the bike and it's all those beautiful purple colors, that song just worked. Right. So I think, a lot of it also comes down to the song and how it matches the scene.
Sure. Clearance. We'll go back to Clearance. Just as the show is progressing, have you had any super strong nightmarish moments where something's just kind of got to come together and it either one fell through entirely or two just made it in time to kind of fulfill the vision of whatever scene you were working on?
How much time do you have? I have some of the most amazing Clearance stories that I think will rival anybody else's. I have some amazing ones. I think one example for Euphoria was at the end of, all the episodes are started, because also it's been a while, but there's a scene where the Rue and Jules are in bed and the bed spins and there's this huge, beautiful orchestral epic type of piece of music. That was something from a 1974 Italian film that, again, Sam and Julio, sometimes when you leave them to their own devices, I get the continuity, the list of all the music in the episode. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this right now. But that one was really tough because the copyright owners were in Italy and it was in the middle of the summer. And I know that the Europeans take their summer vacations very seriously. So I was very nervous about that. And, it was like, Sam, have a backup. He said, there is no backup. So, and this was 2 or 3 days before we had the mix. And it was very, very, very stressful. I set my alarm for 3 a.m. to make sure I called Italy at 11, just really, I figure if they're in the office, they'll be there by 11. And thankfully it actually all came together and I cleared the song. And then I was told, oh, wait, actually not that song. It's this song. So that there was some tears with that one. So that's a good example of a difficult clearance that just kind of came in right at the nick of time. And I mean, yeah, I can go on and on, especially about, the working with samples. There's definitely some songs that are, huge songs now that, they have this sample in there from, Kanye, for example. He just, I don't know, he just gets a pile of records and just starts sampling shit. And that record, we have no idea what it is or who the writers are. I mean, it's just, it's intense, especially with hip hop. That one, the the Italian film was very, 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 very intense and stressful. But I've got I've got 1,000,001 stories that we could do a whole panel just on my clearance nightmares.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess one question I kind of even have, music supervision wise, pre-recorded music, like trying to pull in, already recorded tracks like masters and publishing splits and writers, and then working with the composers for a film. Are you working with them hand in hand, getting stuff within the show as well, or are they sort of on their own little islands?
So I think that's project to project kind of thing. For example, with Euphoria, working with Labyrinth, I mean, we just both had our own crap to deal with. Like we just stayed in our own lanes because we just were, it was just too much to try and, kind of cross-pollinate. I mean, there was just no way. You think about it on a composer end, episode 104, the big carnival scene, that was all score. And that was about 30 minutes worth of music. And you think about it, Labyrinth as an artist, he puts out a full record. That's 45 minutes? And how long does that take for an artist to make a full-length record? Months. And he had to make 30 minutes of music in less than a month. Wow. So he had that going on. And I had, for example, the Halloween episode that had 27 songs in it. So there was really it was just like, peace be with you, go. So I think it really depends. Atlanta, we don't have a composer. Umbrella Academy, we have Jeff Russo, who's brilliant. But, it's just my experiences has always been a little bit more separate. But I know that there's a lot of amazing music supervisors who do work hand in hand with the composer when creating the score. So, but my experience, it's pretty separate.
Yeah. Okay. Clearance timelines wise, or just in general, when the music jumps into the production schedule, TV and film, I'm assuming differ, but how much heads up time do you have roughly in a TV schedule versus a film schedule? Or did things change a lot, over the last year with the COVID time? We had a lot more downtime and stuff wasn't filming as much. So did you see a lot of changes, or what is kind of the general runtime?
Well, so I'll take that in two parts. So more of like a pre-COVID normal situation. Films do take, I was on King of Staten Island, the Judd Apatow movie, for basically a full year. Mm-hmm. But there would be times where I wouldn't hear anything. And then there was times where it would be, 2 weeks worth of, 80-hour days or felt days. I have a show on Fox called The Resident. And it's a weekly show. And, this season we're just doing 14 episodes because of COVID. But we shoot, edit, mix, air in maybe two weeks. Wow. And when they shoot 2 to 3 weeks. So I have and what's good with that show is that the editors that I work with are always really great about saying, hey, I want to use this song. Because, I send them bins of music, emotional and, moody and upbeat. And, I get that stuff a lot from, my people on your side, the labels and publishers where they're pitching me music. So we're always in constant communication, but sometimes you don't know what's in the cut until you get the continuity. And then immediately I just get started clearing, because you never know, something that might be one writer, one publisher. I mean, The Weekend for another show took 6 weeks to clear. And at least on that show, I had the luxury of time because they were still shooting episode. They were shooting other episodes, but normally it's not a lot of time at all to clear. And with COVID, it was kind of some mellow time, which was really nice. I don't want to complain too much, but after a couple weeks, I was like, let's go. So right. Now that now I think production schedules are a little bit longer because you have to factor in quarantine and, just shooting big scenes at once with a lot of extras like here rather than like spacing them out. So it's a different way of TV and filmmaking for sure now with COVID.
Sure. All right. Now for some fun questions. You personally, do you have, you obviously do, favorite music genres, and how does that dictate sometimes your mindset working? Do you feel you always have to be open to everything, and do you kind of take some time out to explore new music for yourself and just enjoy it, or has some of that glimmer kind of gone away at times?
Well, I think now, especially because I'm lucky and I have a lot of projects, anytime I listen to a song or I hear a song, it's, what show would this be good in? Is this syncable? Could I use this somewhere? And then it kind of just goes into, on my Spotify, I just have all my shows listed, and I just kind of drag them in. But it's, there's a lot of, it's always in the back of my head of, would this song work here? What song would, is this show, you think? So I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, that's good. Do you have, who's your all-time favorite artist? If you could get them to sign off and give you any song you could want, and you had pretty much open access to their catalog, who would it be?
I mean, my favorite band in the whole world is 9 Inch Nails. Like, they're the reason why I got into music industry in the first place. Like, when I was going out for my first job, it was, well, if I'm going to work for bands I love, if I'm going to work for bands, I want to work for bands I love. And 9 Inch Nails was there. So, it's very specific where their music would fit. But, they're one of my favorites. I also like, it's a lot of like cool covers, I think can be really fun when you find something that's really different and unique and a different spin on a song. And we do a lot of that in Umbrella Academy. Like, we had this girl from a very small town in Sweden cover Hello by Adele in Swedish.
Wow.
So that was, and getting Adele doesn't really, she doesn't usually clear that song a lot because obviously it's very close to her. But, I sent her through management, I sent her, the song that we were using. And, she loved the cover. So I think cool covers are fun. But, there's one hip hop song. It's a Gucci Mane song called So Icy. Completely unclearable. Like, I think it was the cause of a shootout in Atlanta in one part. But I would love to use that song in a show. It'd be great. So,
yeah,
it's unclearable.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's a dope song.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the cover thing because I know on our side that's been a giant talk of, a lot of trailers like to do that kind of stuff where they're finding new, re-recordings of just popular songs because, it might be that the actual masters kind of not run its course in a way, but sort of, I guess, kind of in that way. Yeah. So is there anything specific you look for in a re-recording, or do you just sort of play it by ear depending on how it fits into the scene?
It really depends on the scene. I don't want to use it too much because the trailer world is very much like in a world and then cue creepy cover, cue creepy cover. I mean, if you just, for our audience, if you're, now like start watching trailers and you will see that it's all like, in a world. Creepy cover comes in and then it comes out and then so I don't want to use them too much because they can get played out. But when you find a cool one and that's interesting and if it works in the scene, but otherwise it's just as far as putting it's just I wish a lot of older catalog type stuff, like some of the obscure like crate digging stuff is clearable. But sometimes those artists or those songwriters, you just don't even know where they are. And it's just really hard. So I wish those were a little bit more readily available on a clearance level. Sure, it's on Spotify, but can I find the writers and clear it? Sometimes that's remains to be seen.
Sure. To the students that are watching, or just anyone who's looking to enter into this career field, what is sort of a major piece of advice that you would have appreciated hearing, sitting on that other side of that camera, looking at where you are now?
The best piece of advice, my first day with Dave Jordan, I had my little notepad and my pen. I'm like, okay, ready. The first thing he told me was learn how to do your own clearance. So there's that. And then it's how do I learn how to do my own clearance? Well, there's so much access online right now. And I think that it's even more so now as music supervision has kind of got to be this cool, sexy job. There's a lot more panels like this. I think there's the Guild of Music Supervisors is very helpful. They're having a conference like next week. But they've also been amazing with doing all sorts of panels during COVID. Everything from, on cameras to animation to, just all sorts of, a composer panel. And those are all on the YouTube site. And I think that those are great to just, listen to them as a podcast or whatever. And I think it's just research. Learn how to do research and accept and be okay and be willing and ready and able to start at the bottom to intern. I'm independent music supervisor. I can't pay someone as a coordinator. I can't give them a job and pay them a salary if they don't know what they're doing. And I think that that's really important to be okay with that. And, and that's just, as a music supervisor, you have to be resourceful. And you have to just kind of figure it out sometimes, especially when you're independent like me. So, so kind of doing that. And also, remember that research, not only of how to get into this job, but also, again, if you need to clear a song and you need to, learn a different genre, it's just all research. So I think, learning how to do your own clearance, interning, and just researching other, other articles and talks online to just continue to just, devour it. And then finally, it just escaped me. This was when you go in, when you're talking to a music supervisor, I think it's very, very important that it is, that you're coming in understanding that it is a business. You are running the department of a television show, and that is not picking cool music. So going into an interview, like if I do meet with somebody and they're just like, oh, I can put together a cool playlist and I know the best news, I'm like, do you know what a quote request is? Do you know what a publishing company is and what that does and what their function is? And, do you have any basis of knowledge on that? I think that that's really important, knowing that this is a business. And when you go in to get a job, that is, that was the thing with Dave Jordan. I wasn't coming at it from I want to put music in movies. It was, I know this is a business and I have to learn the business. So I think those are, kind of the most important piece of advice that I could give. I mean, it's there. It's just, there's also the, I know you guys are all in school, but there's the UCLA Extension School that does a music supervision class. So, and then also just start supervising, from all of the research that you're doing and the tools that you're learning on your own, because that's all we have right now during COVID. Start music supervising a friend's film, an independent film, and just the student film, and just kind of jump in.
Awesome. Well, Jen, we really appreciate your time. As I said, a former student myself, watching these, these were huge when we had these in class, of just hearing about, how the process goes, that these jobs actually do exist. So, on behalf of everyone, we thank you so much, and best of luck in the upcoming year. And we're super excited to see what you got coming out for us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of your help, by the way, when we work together. You're amazing to work with, and I love it. And you're awesome, too. So thank you for helping me get it done on our side.